Holy moly, I'm happy to be here. Wait, I don't know. Whatever. We're just going to keep rolling because we've had a bunch of tech issues and I don't have it's 1 no, it's 12:30 here in Europe and it's episode 95 of Hotline League. I'm joined right now by my constant co-host Mark Zimmerman as well as Kelsey Moser, 100T coach, 100T Academy coach, and I don't know, do you have a title while you're at Worlds cuz you're doing stuff that isn't coaching at Worlds, Kelsey?
Uh, Currently just freelance
Currently,
article writing.
she's a freelance
Yay.
article writer. Um, we also have two sponsors, which because I've been running around trying to get everything going, I realized they don't have their logo up on screen yet. So I'm going to do that in a second, and we'll interrupt myself in the middle of whatever I'm doing to introduce them to the show. But while I work on getting those logos up, Mark, how's your week been?
It's been weird, kind of on that polyphasic sleep cycle kind of thing where I'll get up at 5 a.m., watch games, nap at like 11 or until like 4 usually, and then get back up and then go to bed at midnight or 1. So I'm still getting my 8 hours. It's just really messed up. But other than that, pretty good. Games have been exciting for the most part. I think there haven't been too many surprises this Worlds yet. Hopefully you get to see some more in the second half. I don't know if you feel different, Kelsey.
Yeah, I think for me there are a few upsets just because I think Fnatic for me is the biggest surprise of the tournament. But other than that, I think it's just more like, okay, I could see this have gone this way even if I didn't predict it because of X, Y, and Z. So yeah, it's been like kind of an uninspiring tournament from that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Fnatic thing, it depends how, like, where you rated them, because it felt like everyone thought they were good, but it was a question of like, are they tournament favorite good, or are like, or even not favorite, but like chance at winning the tournament, or just like a top 8 team at Worlds, as well as like how they're playing is, I guess, how they play is a big surprise.
It's how they're playing is fucking weird. Like that's I don't. It's not about how you rate them or whether or not you expected them to lose to SKT and RNG, because frankly, like I think RNG just historically have had a good matchup against them, and then SKT Fnatic, whatever. It doesn't really matter what the results are, because let's be honest, they've played 3 games. What matters is the stuff that they're doing makes no sense whatsoever. Like their drafts are really illogical. The Garen Yumi thing is fine, I guess, but it's how they comp around it more than anything, and also the fact that they're not really acknowledging what Hillsong does for their team when they're playing, when they're focusing so much on Yumi in particular. Like a lot of people are like, let's just put Reckless on standard ADCs. It has nothing to do with that shit at all. It's just their drafts are just bad compositionally. Like no single part of the draft is bad. It's just that the draft as a whole is bad.
All right, well, we're going to get more into the Fnatic stuff as time goes on, I'm sure. But I do want to give a shout out to Alienware, who sponsors so much of what I do, as well as Movement. There we go. For sponsoring Hotline League. We'll talk more about them as the show continues. But okay, so before we super deep dive into any of the teams again or whatever, and especially because maybe it's a good idea to do that around calls, how have Worlds been for both of you? Mark, you said that you've been dealing with sleep stuff, but I mean, do you generally, are you enjoying this Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to not enjoy Worlds. I know what that would be like to not be enjoying it. But it's like we were saying, it's not been the craziest one. I don't think we really seen like, I don't know, like a GAM level upset or like Kaboom or any of those kind of like crazy ones that really throw a group out of whack yet. There's been close to a couple, like there's been some really close calls, like the TL game versus AHQ and C9, but they still managed to clutch those out. So game might have been a little scary in the moment, but then the result ended up kind of what you would have expected.
Yeah.
As long as you don't look too close at it.
I do think that it's not that the games aren't like the results are predictable. That's a letdown. It's just that sometimes the way in which the games are being won, like really, really awkward things that are somewhat deciding the games, such as Baron setups, teams that usually are very good at controlling midsection and then, you know, setting up zones, making sure they're calling turns. Barons just are not doing that really randomly. There's so many 50-50 Barons, even relative to previous worlds. So things like that are the things that are more disappointing to me than the results themselves.
Well, Brodin and I have been in Berlin for almost a week now. I think we landed tomorrow. It'll be a full week. And it's been pretty up and down, I'll say. I mean, I'm obviously enjoying the games, but Kelsey knows and I don't know. I'm trying not to flame Riot here because I don't think it's all their fault.
Not a good day for that.
Well, so yeah, it's their 10-year anniversary, which we can talk about in a little bit. But press situation's just been rough. The press room is pretty tight with the amount of media that are in there, so it's kind of hard to get around. There have been teams, and it's getting a little bit better, but there have been teams that are just kind of like blanket declining interviews. They're not doing very many. Griffin seems to just not be doing any Western interviews, I assume because of their coaching shit. But it just makes it hard. And then the other thing is the internet is just really bad outside the venue. So the press workroom has had rough internet. So anyway, this is me more just venting at how I've been, but it has been a bit of a difficult Worlds, I feel like, and it's definitely taking its toll. But I'm super happy to be doing the show, and by the way, it is the day that Riot is celebrating their 10-year anniversary. If they've announced stuff, you're watching the VOD or listening to the audio, and we won't be able to reference any of that because unfortunately this is a couple hours before their big show. But it's exciting for sure, and I mean, it's been really kind of fun to see all the Twitter stuff where people are kind of reflecting on it. I know Mark said you're going to shit post soon if you haven't already for the
I already did. Instead of celebrating League, I'm going to go back over every mistake Riot has made over the last 10 years.
Gotcha.
To commemorate 10 years that they somehow made it through, you know?
Yeah. Fantastic.
There you go.
So anyway,
right.
That's that. But it is cool to have the 10-year stuff. And oh, by the way, if you are watching live right now, just know that I'm going to be co-streaming the 10-year anniversary announcement. So feel free to stick around, and we'll all watch the show together. It'll be fun. All right, let's actually dive in, though. So, okay, so it seems like the big things that we're talking about right now are World Group Stage, obviously. So some of the big stuff there, Fnatic. We can talk about whether or not FunPlus is on the rise. We just finished, by the way, for people that are watching the VOD, listening to the podcast. This is the end of, is today Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday here in Berlin, which means that we're done with the first 4 days of groups. And as it stands, G2 and SKT, the only teams that have made it out 3-0 unscathed, which is fascinating. And I think kind of lends itself to the narrative going into this of, who were the strongest teams. I think people would have said those two. Bjergsen re-signed with TSM. We can talk about that. I'm sure we'll get at least a call or two saying it's the best thing ever, it's the worst thing ever. And then I'm trying to think, I guess we can talk a little bit about the Griffin stuff if anybody wants to call in about it, since there's been crazy stuff coming out about all that. And I think it's not super clear yet what is going on there. Anything else that I'm forgetting, guys?
Nope. I see a lot of people posting topics in the text channels, but they're not joining the call room, so you do that, people.
Yeah, so do you want to just explain how the show works for anybody who hasn't been caught it live?
Yeah. So if you've never seen the show before...
Invert, our guest from last week, is no longer at FlyQuest and seemingly looking for a job, so I think it sounds like that was a FlyQuest decision, not that he necessarily left.
Oh, be careful on this show, Kelsey. Watch out.
Okay. I'm not sure what I want. Oh, yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I don't know. Sounds like I don't know what happened between them. That sucks for him. Anyways, if you guys haven't seen the show before, the way this works, it's a live call-in show. In Twitch chat, I just posted the Discord. Once you click join up, you can go ahead and join one of the Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls voice channels. You need to do that for me to be able to pull you into the waiting room. I will do that if I like your topic, which you should post in the Pleb Topics or Subtopics text channel. I'll be going in there, pulling things, and after that, you'll be wait in the waiting room until it's your turn to come on, and then we will talk to you.
Yeah, very good. And if you are a sub, first off, thank you for being a sub. Really appreciate it. Feel free to join the subtopics chat in Discord after you've linked your Discord and Twitch together, and that'll allow you to put your topics there, and that moves a little slower, so we can go about it that way. But Mark, do you want to go ahead and start grabbing callers?
Sure.
While Mark is doing that, speaking of subs, I want to read off some subs, which I super appreciate. We're pulling that going right now. Twitch chat. 100T Kelsey Moser, head coach. Oh yes, this is Kelsey. She works for 100T. If you're just joining now, she's here doing some freelance work covering Worlds because unfortunately 100T didn't make it here. Although they do seem to have a lot of a presence here. We've got Bang doing interviews, Kelsey doing interviews, and Papa Smithy on the desk, which I find pretty funny. Let's see. Looks like Mark is still pulling somebody, and I'm still grabbing the subtopic. Okay, here we go. Thank you for I Hate Snarf, Kylo Zen, Formentum GG, Champlu for the 4 months, Shiny Froki 20 months, Ferdy IRL 14, and Hinge for 2. Still waiting on Mark, so I'm going to keep going. Angry IT Dude for 3, X Solvark for 10, and Benjamin for 3 months in a row. Looks like Mark is coming back right now, and he's brought Droland with him. Droland, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm from Phoenix.
Phoenix. And what did you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So my topic was just a general question for Kelsey on how Papa Smithy is going to integrate with 100T and if he's helping out with you guys yet.
I love this is such a spicy week, and we get this. We get like a general question right now.
Hey, I got it.
He's gonna stoke really in-depth discussion, but basically, he has been talking to everyone so far. He is the GM, so he's going to be doing GM specific things like yeah. So that's basically what Papa Smithy's been doing so far.
Sorry, can you repeat? I had to drop from that. You said he's doing GM specific things like what? Roster stuff?
Like roster related stuff, leading the roster building, and generally managing the staff so far. So basically just ongoing meetings are led through Papa Smithy right now. And that's basically, it's not too controversial to say that. I don't think I'm leaking anything. So.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that it makes sense that you guys are looking at roster stuff the same way every org does during the break.
Yep.
Have you had much interaction with Papa Smithy so far, Kelsey?
Yeah. We have regular meetings. Most of the staff does. So he's been working hard at work already, earning the esports bucks.
It's an interesting situation to be in because he's at Worlds on a desk and also trying to figure out, I guess, what his roster is going to look like.
Yeah, I guess so. Some people can multitask. I know that not everyone can, but multitasking occurs occasionally.
I don't know.
Is that a shot at Travis?
What's that?
Is that a shot at Travis?
No, maybe not. I don't know. Why would it be a shot at Travis?
I'm doing a lot of things here. I've been working all day. Mark, I'm balancing some stuff that we're releasing later tonight. Mark, with Brodin. Mark, do you have thoughts on this Papa Smithy stuff?
No.
Great.
This
is super.
I have more important things on my mind, and I can't multitask. Look how cute he is.
I was expecting something like, oh, wow, what a terrible person. You know, he should be 100% focused on either casting or 100 Thieves, not double dipping. But
that would be pretty unfair, given that like my whole position, so I can do multiple things with my time as opposed to just cast league. So that would definitely throw some stones.
I'm just saying that's about as controversial as I think you can get with this. So.
Yeah.
Droland, do you have any other additional questions or anything?
I guess like just a side take. I really am very excited to see Papa Smithy joining 100 Thieves, and I do think that 100 T will be a top 3 team next year overall. I think like obviously there's going to have to be some roster adjustments, especially with mid lane. But I think that overall, especially with Kelsey, Papa Smithy, and with Prawley there, I'm very excited. So,
well, unfortunately, there won't be a specific adjustment in the mid lane for 100T that I think a lot of 100T fans are hoping for, but maybe we'll talk about that in a later call. I assume you pulled somebody, Mark, yeah?
For what?
For the Bjergsen stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So Discord, we fixed this weird popping noise earlier that Discord would make, but now, every now and then, every couple minutes, the Discord audio just gets tinny. So this is like the fun new world we get to live in. Either way, Drillend, anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Nope, I'm all good.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a good one.
Thanks for coming on.
Okay, I've reconnected again. Let's see if this works. Mark is grabbing the next caller. Kelsey, how long are you staying through the entire Worlds?
I'm just staying for the Berlin stage, so I'm gonna hang out in Berlin for a little bit before I go back to LA. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I continually keep dropping and reconnecting to the Discord to try and fix it. Novaris, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Italy, actually.
From Italy? Okay.
First time.
Is it
I
better?
managed to catch this live because you do it usually way too late and I'm just asleep.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's kind of fun. I mean, it is still late in Europe. It's 1 o'clock here in Berlin. Is it the same in Italy? Do you guys share the same time zone?
It's Rome time zone, so yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
My take is that Fnatic, after basically band-aiding all year and trying to deny against all proof that they don't have a system, finally exposed themselves because Broxa is good at what he does in Fnatic, but he's not really a creative jungler that you would see, like, for example, Yangos or anyone else really in Europe, actually, I think. And you see that because we saw that very well, I think, in this last game they played. Broxa would show up, go top, and then he will go bot once and then try to go top again. And he didn't I don't think that he could have done much more if he tried to press the advantage that then managed to get on bot side once they blew. And I don't think that he pressed the advantage that he had. The other thing that I wanted to say was that these picks, they where Fnatic tries to be cute and get this weird comms, really hurt them because Hillsong is their best player, in my opinion. And he needs to roam to help Broxa function properly, especially in mid lane, because they need to free up Nemesis where he can actually start to affect the map in bot lane and mid lane and the top lane. How they managed to get G2 to 5 games twice, and that's the Fnatic that we actually saw get the second seed. I think that I like that this time.
So, Novaris, it sounds like you're suggesting Fnatic had systemic problems this whole year, and that it's only now that they're finally, getting exposed here at Worlds.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. Kelsey or Mark, I don't know how either of you feel about this, but
Kelsey, I think I remember reading an article of yours months ago about, I think maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I think it was Broxa you were saying was overrated as a jungler. Is that roughly what I remember you were bringing up other examples of other junglers, right?
I think with the exception of his performance at Worlds last year, I've pretty much felt that Brox is pretty overrated. I think he had a good performance at Worlds, largely hinged on the fact that you could very easily early pick his pool, and I think he has kind of a limited number of champions that he performs well on, but even then, it is pretty standard kind of like the movements that he goes for. A lot of stuff like individual situations where lanes need resets are really contingent on some of Hillsong's roam, so I don't necessarily disagree. However, I would say that this particular tournament doesn't feel like it's necessarily fair to blame Broxa for everything. So I wouldn't say that this is like a Broxa specific problem. Maybe if the argument is along the lines of, oh, okay, these strategies like these Yuumi, Garen specific strategies are really, really strong, and the fact that they can't execute them is down to Broxa, you could potentially make that argument. But I also think that the comps that they draft around them, just even independently of Broxa, are not particularly good. So it's really strange because it feels like even when they're picking these like strong power picks, it feels like they don't understand exactly how to make them work or how to make it so that you're not just forced to have kind of like a one-dimensional group up, get first turret before 15 minutes, or lose most of your ability to siege towers. So
it seems weird because from everything we've seen from the Garen Yuumi in the games, even not Fnatic ones, but like it seems like a pretty weak strategy in the early to mid game, and then it eventually hits this point where Yuumi really starts chunking hard after like an item and a half maybe, or if she gets her death cap right away with like a rush on the build you're doing. And then Garen also hits this point where he gets unkillable, and then it kind of becomes like, well, it doesn't matter, you have a 3k gold lead, it's really hard to take territory against us because you're basically walking into this roaming artillery bullshit. And that seems kind of at odds with Fnatic's playstyle from their summer split, where people talk about Hilly being their best player, great on a playmaker, you want to see him roaming. Well, Yuumi can't do any of that. She kind of just stuck to the Garen. If this is weak in the early game, as it appears to be, then that's also not seeming to be their playstyle, where they were the best. I think they had almost all the best early game stats in Europe. So like, it seems beyond what people are criticizing, like put Reckless on carries, which you hear a lot of. And even I'm saying that too a little bit, where I don't know. The whole thing looks a little sus, but this iteration of it in particular, I think, hampers them more than if like the Morgana Blitzcrank at least makes sense, where Morgana sits 1v2, plays pretty uninteractive, and then Hilly's free to go do what he wants. Like, that's one where I can get a little bit more behind. Now, whether or not that makes sense and the rest of the comp is different. But, the Garen Yuumi definitely, as annoying as it looks, I'm not 100% sold on the strategy as doing much other than being super, super hard to abuse.
See, I think the thing that's weird about it is that Fnatic was like the first team to actually bring it out, if I recall correctly, within the context of the LEC. So they were the first ones to really kind of debut it and have it show up on stage. So I think it's a little bit strange. And like at those compositions were very, usually they were somewhat TF-centric, right? I think the first time they brought it out, they did have a TF with it. They had like a Nocturne, so they had the ability to kind of have like slightly more range, to have the ability to move around the map, have slightly more mobility in that context. Whereas I feel like that would allow them to like kind of make moves away from the Garen Yuumi. And I also think that the Nocturne pairs really well with the Yuumi in terms of allowing Hillsong to do what he wants to do as well in terms of having an effect on the map. So like all of these feel slightly more Fnatic-centric uses of it. Whereas like if you're setting up this thing where it's just a strict like 1-3-1, you have to have the ability to hold the midsection, but you're not going to get to that point until Garen has enough items. Just doesn't seem as like thought out, as well as keeping the jungle pick to 4-5 when you have a jungler like Broxa. So these are more kind of my concerns with it, is just like thinking about how are we going to get to a point where our like Gangplank Rise Garen Yuumi is going to actually make sense on the map.
Well, especially because... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, obviously, like Gangplank has a good matchup into Akali, but a lot of the other stuff just didn't make sense, didn't give them an opening. Contesting like the level 1, like even beyond just the draft, some of the stuff, the decisions they're making, contesting the level 1 as Rek'Sai versus like Lisa and things of that nature just feel really, really awkward and bad in general.
Yeah, I think the way I saw Garen Yuumi working before was it was actually a catch champion more so than a poke champion, where like, yes, it had really obnoxious poke, that was really good in laning phase, but then the slow was super obnoxious, especially with Garen's speed ups. And if you were ever caught anywhere not near a turret, they could theoretically engage on you with this Garen Yuumi crap. And now, without like having that much stickiness, it seems like more of a poke champion, which is even though technically the same two champions, it plays fundamentally different. And then when you pair it with things like you're saying, like a TF and a Nocturne, you have all these things that can go in together and really catch people who are just slightly out of position. That's not what it does anymore. And it just looks really awkward to try and get things done in the mid to late game. It like I said, super annoying, but I haven't seen it other than maybe the Griffin game versus C9. The other examples were like C9 had trouble pushing to him, would just keep engaging onto it, and Clutch did the same thing where they would just keep ulting it, and they were trying to kill the Garen. You can't kill the Garen, but that's not like the Garen Yumi's particularly doing anything to you. It's more like you can't do anything to it. So I haven't seen it function exactly, like you're saying, with these other picks quite as well. And I'm not sure what you exactly want to put around it to make its game plan work. Like you're saying, maybe 1-3-1.
I mean, is the best. More like so I think the 1-3-1 is fine. Like that idea is fine, but they didn't necessarily have like any sort of agency to get themselves out of the early game to the point where like Garen Yumi could theoretically hold the setup. Also, they didn't really have good range for sieging the tower. So at the point where, okay, we have to take mid tower so we can hold the map, they're basically just like forcing themselves and trying to impale themselves short range against this tower, right? They don't have like the ability to like attack it from range. They don't have the ability to kind of like what exactly is Garen Yumi frontlining for at a certain point is what you're wondering yourself. Like obviously Garen, Yumi, the combination, Yumi is kind of the carry, right? But like in the early and mid game, like you need to have kind of a bridge to get to that point. And I felt like a lot of these drafts really kind of lacked that. So you got to the point even in the Clutch series where it felt like, okay, if Clutch were a better team, this would be closed out against them because like they don't have range. What the fuck are they even going to do at a certain point? So I don't know. It was strange. So it's not like the Garen Yumi in and of itself is bad or that I think it's necessarily fundamentally bad for Fnatic, which I do think like if you do have a playmaker like Hillsong and kind of a more one-dimensional jungler like Broxah, obviously there's a bit of a disconnect and problems with it, but I do think that generally speaking, like people are blaming Fnatic for drafting Garen Yumi without really understanding like the full picture of why it's not working for them.
So question here is this like a fundamental Fnatic problem that's going to stop them from being able to find success in the second half of groups?
No, because even if we drop Garen Yumi, they're still doing weird shit, and I don't know what's going on.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say the same thing, basically, where I'm not convinced that even if they were going like standard drafts, playing sides of the Kaisas, Ayas, mostly play normal, I'm not convinced that they're beating RNG and SKT with what we're seeing otherwise. So yeah, I think that they're in a lot of trouble. I don't think they get out. I didn't think they got out before. I was one of the naysayers on the Fnatic hype train.
I thought they did get out before. I thought that Royal has a good matchup into them, but I thought that Fnatic has like more of a level of consistency in what they want to do. And they had a better matchup into SKT, specifically regarding kind of just the way that like Clid is way more of an independent agent than a lot of the junglers in terms of coordinating with his lanes sufficiently. Like I think Clid a lot of times is just kind of like autonomously going from lane to lane, not necessarily like working in conjunction with the setups. A lot of his ganks are like not even at good timings, right? But they work because certain people won't expect them, or the CC combos with the laners are just really, really on point, right? So for me, it was like, okay, if you have a lot of agency and good reset timings from Fnatic, and then Hillsong is doing a good job, and you're constantly forcing the 3v2 mid, then you're in a much better position. That's not the way that they're playing. I also felt like a lot of times SKT don't necessarily get contested in, and you saw this in the SKT RNG series game as well. Like a lot of times SKT don't really get contested in like their ability to hold mid either and then go to side. So if they can't answer like a mid push, like almost like an ARAM style mid push, how do they react? So that was my question mark for it. Obviously, they ended up being able to adapt only after kind of mis-executing their composition several times in that game that I thought that something like that could be taken advantage of either by a team like RNG or a team like Fnatic. And I felt like RNG would be kind of more exploitable or easy to figure out because they're just not going to change it at all. Whereas Fnatic, to me, seemed like they had more dimensions. Like they were able to adapt to the way that G2 was using vision in their series in the best of 5. And I thought that that was really cool to see. So stuff like that I thought would give Fnatic more of an edge.
So Navarre's...
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I actually kind of like did think that Fnatic would get out of this group, and I'm just really surprised that not only are they drafting really, really strange things that don't necessarily make sense as a whole, but they're also just playing poorly. Like you see a lot of really bad decisions, misexecuted, like whiffing like almost of their abilities or using them for no reason against the RNG game today. Like stuff like that. It's just really strange.
So Navarre's, I take it you don't have Fnatic getting out.
Actually had them getting out. I thought that Broxa would be able to come with a game plan and blow up one lane. I wanted Broxa to just take people and blow up one lane and try to win through one lane as they did many games, but they're just not doing it.
No, I guess do you feel now that they're going to get out?
No, after seeing this Fnatic, I don't see them getting out. Even if they change the draft, I don't see.
So I have a question for you because I'm actually kind of curious about this, and I think people will think that I'm like trying to, go in on EU fans or something. That's not really the case. I'm just kind of curious. Like, do you, let's say Splice doesn't make it out, and then Fnatic doesn't make it out, and not only do they not make it out, but they look not great in the process. How do you feel as an LEC fan about all this stuff? Is it okay if G2, looks solid and they're just carrying the torch for LEC, or is this like a disappointing year for EU?
It was a sad day the day Splice won Gauntlet, but I don't see. If G2 can win it, I'm happy. I'm happy if they can win. I'm like really nice for bragging rights if Fnatic or Splice get out, but I only really care about who wins.
Yeah.
Only G2 makes it, and then they win it all. I don't really care about the others.
So then what? Yeah, what looks like a successful year for EU as an LEC fan? Does G2 have to win the whole thing for you to feel successful if the other two don't make it out, or is it just make it to finals or semis?
To me, it's already successful, but I don't think people will actually count this. It's like RNG dominated all of 2018 and then IG won, so no one gives a shit about RNG anymore.
I lost Kelsey's. Kelsey, can you refresh your camera?
RNG was the...
That's a freeze frame.
Yeah.
Mid blink.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, so basically, for me, they are. It's already a success for it to be cemented and accepted. I think that they need to win. Someone from EU needs to win the Worlds for it to be really a success.
Yeah.
EU wants to say that LEC can contend with LPL and LCK. They don't want it to say, "Oh, we're better than LCS." So we need to win. Otherwise, we won't be able to say that we are actually equal to them.
Yeah.
To LCK and LPL.
Well, thanks so much, Novaris, for calling in. Anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Really wanted for our Origin to show up in Gauntlet and say, "Psych, we didn't actually collapse," but no, we can't have nice things. Apparently,
yeah.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. All right, let's take a quick break right now to talk about. This will be our first sponsor break of the night. Alienware, who's supporting so much of the stuff that we're doing here at Worlds. I talked about this before, but Worlds is actually an incredibly expensive thing to cover. Just the sheer amount of costs associated with flying over from the U.S., flying to all these different cities, going to these hotels and staying in them for a long period of time. Because of the fact that Brodin and I do video content, it makes it so that you have to find a place that has good internet. I obviously want to do Hotline League. And so I can't express enough how absolutely expensive it is to cover this stuff. I encourage you guys to think about just the cost of flying over to Europe for potentially over a month. And all of that is made possible for us through Alienware. Brodin and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So I want to give a huge shout out to them using their M15 notebook over here, Brodin and myself both, to create all the content that's happening. And they're going to be doing a giveaway later on through Worlds with me to win one of those. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, you can go check it out over at alienware.com/Travis. If you're watching the YouTube VOD, you can click the link in the description. That'll help you. You can check out some of their stuff. They've got a bunch of other cool things over there too, including, and this is, I'm not saying this is for everyone, but they have a 55-inch OLED gaming monitor. Think about a monitor 55 inches. It's pretty big. And I believe I'm getting that delivered to my place while I'm at Worlds, so that'll be my present as I come home.
Do you know roughly what day?
What day? I'm resetting. There we go. I'm disconnecting from Discord because for some reason we lost audio again. But I don't know what day, Mark. I don't know what day. But I've got somebody at home who's going to bring it into the apartment, so you can't steal it. Sorry.
Okay.
Either way, go check out. It's not a TV. Somebody in the Twitch chat says it's a TV. No, it's actually a monitor. All the cool features that are available for monitors available in this thing, including FreeSync, by the way. So go check that and so many other things out at alienware.com/Travis. I'll put it in the Twitch chat. And thank you to Alienware for supporting so much of the things that we do here at Worlds. But I believe it's time to move on to the next caller if you want to go grab them, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and drop that into Twitch chat. Yeah, go look at it if you're on the YouTube video. Click in the thing. It helps me out a ton. Mark is grabbing the next caller right now. While he's doing that, let me shout out a couple people. Let's see. Levitator444, Steve Akron, Benjamin, Xsolvark, Bezium100, Fragbite Light, and Mark's still over there. Rabble Rouser, The Notorious Mid, and Cameron 00C. I actually, again, because Worlds is so expensive, it is really nice when people are supporting the stream by subbing, so I appreciate it. Oh, and as I'm saying that, Avura sent sub for 12 months. Thank you for the 1 year. And a Trickster, I believe is how you say that. We got Harry the Man 298 here. Harry, where are you calling from?
I'm from the Netherlands.
From the Netherlands. Oh, we're gonna get all these EU callers because we've got a different time zone for the show. It is 1 o'clock here, but I appreciate it. Harry, welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about?
My hot take is that everyone is hyping up SKT and especially FPX, and they are so overrated. And the reason why is that Splice should have won the game against FPX, and there was 0-2, and now everybody is saying FPS is back. That's not true. If they play the same again against Splice, and Splice is getting back, and they will be playing good, then they will drop that game.
So
and SKT.
Oh, go ahead.
And SKT, that game against RNG played bad because they didn't watch the side lanes, they didn't watch the TPs, only one TP, and it's pretty easy when they backdoored like in the U-chain.
So sorry, I'm a little confused. What's the connection between FPX and SKT?
He's just saying they're both overrated.
Oh, they're both overrated. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not just, the hot take is not just calling one team, one first seed overrated. We got to go in on two simultaneously. I like it.
All right. Travis, pick the team you want us to cover first.
Let's start with FPX because I feel like saying SKT is overrated is going to be, that's a good way to end this call. But yeah, so FPX. So first off, I don't know if people are, can you say, I guess Mark and Kelsey, I'll ask you, is it fair to even say FPX are overrated? Because I feel like a lot of people are saying like, okay, well, FPX, They had that bad game, but like maybe now they're coming back. I don't feel like anybody's like, okay, FPX top contender.
Oh, I think relative to coming into the tournament, say they were overrated. At least what we've seen so far. I mean, maybe they stabilized better, but you know they were, and I was one of the people who thought they'd be really good after having a good run in the LPL, and I thought the LPL was arguably one of the best regions. So and as well as watching their games, they have their own look. There's all these things that they do kind of different in my mind than other teams. I was really excited for them, and they've definitely not impressed me at all. And I'm questioning whether like, what did I see? Like, I swear they were good. It doesn't look like it. I don't know.
Can I ask specifically why you thought they were good? Because I've talked to so many people who have said that like FPX is a contender for the tournament, but I don't actually hear like LPL analysts say it. So that's why it's like really interesting to me that I hear a lot of people who watch like the final say that they looked like insane, right?
I think for me, part of it, like I said, is just context of where they play. How like they were 29-4, like they were super good there. I thought Tian and is it Doinby or Doinby? Because I always say Doinby, but then I started hearing everyone on the cast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doinby.
Okay, I don't know why on the cast I started hearing people say it different ways. But I think Doinby is a really inventive player, and a lot of Worlds is about finding the meta, and I thought like he's probably going to have a unique perspective on the meta that will challenge teams. I thought he works really well with Tian. They do a good job making plays happen. They're just really, really good facilitators. LWX was a little like everyone was talking about him. He's supposed to be sick. I didn't quite buy into him on that level. I didn't think it was really him that made the team really exciting. I thought it was mid jungle, and I thought mid jungle was going to be really important in this Worlds with Clid and Faker. Clid and Faker, Yankos, Apps. I thought a lot of stuff would be revolving around how well mid jungle is synced up, as well as like Showmaker Canyon, Tarzan, Chovy. Like I thought a lot of games would come down to that. And outside of group stage, we start getting into best of fives. I thought like I was saying, their uniqueness, what they're going to be doing, how hard they probably are to prep for, the fact that they should match up well with other team mid jungle duos. I thought that would make them stack up well versus a lot of teams. But I don't know. Apparently,
Kelsey, you disagree.
I was on crack.
I guess for me, one thing that people don't really point out about Doinby is that his actual laning is bad. Just like in terms of 1v1, I think he's very good at orchestrating the team around kind of his fuck-ups, if that makes sense, and using those to create opportunities. But if you just look at his strict laning, it's not good. And that's always kind of been the question mark for me, is that a lot of these kind of like weird things that FPX do are almost to cover up for that, because it's like, all right, if I screw this up, then I'm going to have my support and my jungle come help me get the reset off first, and we're going to use that reset to go to a side lane. And then I might even end up losing like 3 waves for something that I messed up, but we're going to be able to get this kind of dive off, which to me is, it's so strange, because like a lot of what IG does, I would say, is like a really inconsistent strategy as well. And then they won Worlds with it. So I guess inconsistent strategies don't always matter, but it's like eventually a lot of the inconsistencies of it backfired on them, right? Because a lot of the stuff that they were doing was very fixated on like 3 lanes being super shoved forward at once. Ning being able to kind of play for the right scuttle and then knowing where the jungle would match, but not always being able to get that, using a lot of the same like weird gank paths via lane brush. And this is all stuff that you could see IG consistently doing before they were punished for it. So it feels like really similar to me in terms of FPX, is that there are like really obvious problems with them. And I think even RNG identified a little bit how they wanted to counter them, and Xiaohu for me is like a better laning mid laner. So based on that factor, I thought that they would be a lot more easy to deal with in the Worlds, especially since all Doinby teams are almost always the same. And then he'll have like really insane regular seasons runs and get smashed in the first playoff series he plays, basically. So
Kelsey, are you not? Does that mean that you're I mean, okay, so I guess the question for me is, as somebody who doesn't watch very much LPL, this is the number one seed from that region, and it doesn't seem like they really fluked into that position. Like, it wasn't a huge upset when they won, right? So isn't it kind of strange? I guess I would say, are you down on the whole LPL region if you feel like their first seed isn't a contender and perhaps isn't that good?
It's really strange to talk about that because historically speaking, the LPL first seed has not done well at Worlds, right? Since 2013, they've just not made it past quarterfinals. And you could argue that the LPL has still performed historically really well at Worlds overall. So, like, part of that you could say is group draw, quarterfinal draw, everything else. Like, there are a lot of weird circumstances. I think that part of it is just certain factors, like especially with EDG, they don't really run into walls domestically, or if you don't necessarily run into walls domestically, but the other teams, and I think this is consistent in other regions as well, but other teams like second and third seed teams are constantly like forced to adapt and run into walls, and so they might do better internationally than teams like EDG or FPX or Doing B's, like kinds of teams. So
yeah, and even to that point, like RNG, if you're talking about Doing B being overrated, like RNG is probably not a team that's going to exploit that. Rookie was having a relatively bad split. Knight's team, whose name escapes me.
Top Sports, yeah.
Yeah, Top Sports. They I guess basically Knight and not that many other great players. So even if Knight is able to abuse Doinby, if his weakness is laning, like outside of that, there's probably not enough help coming from the rest of his team. So I can buy what Kelsey's saying about there's maybe not a team domestically that, at least during the time period of summer, we're able to stack up, beat them. That makes sense.
Yeah, one second. Let me.
That doesn't necessarily mean that those better against international competition either. So it's kind of a weird situation because that's historically been the case, right? Like no one could beat EDG domestically, but come to Worlds and they run into all sorts of things they're not used to. They can't bait people into picking Twitch into Lucian suddenly.
It happened in North America too, right? Like TSM would always win, but whatever reason you want to attribute it to, they would not perform at all at World. Then there's C9 and another group scraping by the skin of their teeth, making it into quarters until they actually win a semi. So like, there, if you look, there is some historical precedence for number one seed for whatever reason. It's probably you don't want to make a sweep statement, but go case by case. But that they sometimes underperform.
Okay, well, we have a second take here, which is just SKT is overrated. That seems really hard for me to understand because it feels like they're super dominant. But why do you think SKT are overrated?
If you look at their games, especially the RNG game, RNG should have won that game against SKT because SKT backdoored them, and if RNG took one or more teleports, then they can match Faker's teleport and other teleports. And also, it's SKT. SKT is getting hyped up. Faker, number one player in the world for some weird reason. He's still good, but he's not they're better players right now. I think Perks and even Caps, if he's performing well and not inting, is better right now. And also Fnatic in that game, I didn't know, and I got it later, that they're ill. Some players are sick, so yeah, that hurts also against those kind of teams. Against Clutch, it doesn't matter because Clutch is Clutch. So that's why. And I don't think SKT is gonna make past the quarterfinals if they play if they get a bad draw.
If they get a bad draw.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, I will say this. In interviewing the SKT players until maybe today, it did feel like, you do the winners interview, but they didn't seem very happy about it. So I guess it's fair. Maybe saying that they won in dominant fashion is unfair, but it just does feel like them and G2 are in a different world. I don't know, Kelsey or Mark, either of you want to chime in on this?
I don't know, you want to go first, Kelsey?
Sure. I think that it's fair that a lot of SKT's misexecutions haven't really been highlighted on the broadcast as much. But I think that they're performing a little bit better than I thought they would, just because they're bringing out more interesting things. Even if they're not figuring out how to do, Faker's Tristana went 9-0 or whatever, and it wasn't the cleanest Tristana we've seen, right? A lot of that was Fnatic running it down, which we kind of already discussed. And the level 1 that they took, which shouldn't have happened, and Whippo shouldn't have lost lane to Akalia's Gangplank and all of these other factors. But so there were some things that felt like, and then of course the RNG series, it was like, how many times are we going to group mid and play like we're a North American team before we figure out how to 1-3-1 against a team with only one teleport? So I think that those factors can be levied as criticism against SKT, but they ended up playing better overall than I thought they did, mostly because of their ability to adapt within the context of a game, which I don't see a lot of other teams having the same ability to do. I think that that's always kind of been a strong aspect of Teams Faker is on, and then when games were decided earlier, that was something that you couldn't really see SKT do well. So unless we see the meta shift more into kind of the early game focus stuff, then I think SKT are still going to be stronger contenders. And I think that that's kind of the main thing that separates them, is because it's like, if games go late enough, SKT kind of figure out what they're doing and can adapt within the context of a game. That's something that's a strength of them. So
I feel it's so funny, Kelsey, you're like, I did not think this team was going to do well. I didn't think this team was going to do well. Didn't think this team. And then I thought these guys might do well, but they're sucking now. And so you just live in this sad world at world. It's like, who is there anyone? Yeah. I guess G2 is the only team where you probably were like, this is a good team and they're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, G2 was a good team and they're doing well. I thought that RNG, this group is super uniquely good for them, right? I didn't think that RNG could get out of the Griffin group. I wouldn't call them to get out, but being against Fnatic, SKT, who are both teams that I thought were pretty good. In terms of, you could argue that Fnatic maybe going into this would be a similar level to Griffin or whatever. Then if you can make those types of arguments, then I think RNG would get destroyed in a G2 Griffin group. But they're super happy in an SKT Fnatic group. So, those kinds of things I predicted. I thought that was accurate. So, and it's not that I was wrong about everything, but I think SKT Fnatic are two things that I was definitely wrong about.
I think the thing that sells me on SKT is everyone looks good. And like Kelsey was saying, they're trying different things. This is not like MSI where they're just running super standard comps with Azir and whatever. They have these different game plans they're working with. Those will get honed as the tournament goes on. And while some of their decision making, you could say, has been lackluster, like the RNG game or something, they at least seem relatively coordinated, I would say. Maybe it's the wrong call or something, but I think when I watch SKT, it's they seem mostly on the same page as a team. So you have good skilled players who aren't going to really get outmatched by most people except in specific matchups. And then you have a relatively well-coached and coordinated team that's, as the meta gets more developed and they have more time, they'll hopefully perform better. And the other thing is, I don't see who else is supposed to be better than them. It'd be one thing if FPX was fucking slaughtering Group B, and then it's maybe FPX, when they finally meet them, will hold up. Or maybe IG was dominating or something. When they bump into IG solo lanes, then they'll be in trouble. But other than G2, who most people are saying right now is the tournament favorite and is the best team in the tournament, I don't see who is supposed to be holding the number 2 spot over SKT.
Yeah.
I don't know if Harry has a suggestion for who the number 2.
Yeah, I'm actually curious.
Great tournament. I thought what I've seen that was Fnatic, maybe because I'm a Fnatic fan, but I've seen also the finals, and I think it was the best finals I've ever watched. And by the time Fnatic gets its troubles with sickness, illness, it's really hard to draft about that. And right now, I think if Weepo gets better and he gets well soon, they will get out. I don't think RNG gets out then because I think RNG is exploitable then. And the second best team right now I've seen is IG. IG really turns up this tournament, especially the Shy and Rookie. So maybe we get a final against either E2 versus IG, or I hope a European final, but that's my hope.
I think that is your hope. I will say though, I'm down to get behind the idea that IG is the second best team of the tournament, because boy did they struggle to beat TL. You know what I'm saying? It's TL run up against them. It's very clearly IG's a strong team. Either way.
On the Fnatic being sick point, I made this point.
Wait, 1 second, Mark. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I made this point on Summoning Insight, but it's one thing to contextualize some opinions on like, oh, maybe Whippo looked worse because this, but I personally don't like using those kinds of facts and like knowledge of like behind the scenes stuff and what could be affecting them to necessarily make my opinion of them be higher. Like, oh, they're sick, or Griffin's coach is got fired, and it seems like there's some internal bullshit going on there that's really hampering them. It's like, that's true for some teams, but you also don't know what's true going on for all of them just because it's not public information. What the fuck is going on with C9? You know, like there's all these things going on with different teams, and I don't like using that kind of information to change my opinion of a team because I don't get it from everyone. So it's fine to use as context, but I wouldn't go and say they're way better than they're showing because they're sick. If they weren't sick, they'd be number 1 in the group. Because, like, I don't know, maybe FPX is sick, maybe, or maybe they're jet lagged and they can't sleep, or one of them is like vomiting, or someone's mom is sick. You never know what's going on in someone's life, and and like I said, it's fine to use this context and to share and for people to discuss, but I wouldn't want to change my opinion on a team based off this kind of stuff because it just feels sort of selective. Like whoever you're closest with or whoever's the most vocal is suddenly like, oh, they were fine. It was just this thing that held them back.
I think that that's a fair point to make because, like, during the Griffin C9 game, everyone was pointing out that, oh, Griffin are suddenly using Sword again, and that's probably done under duress and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, just logically, C9 decided to start Blabber because that's logical, you know? Like, obviously, there's some kind of game-specific reason for that because we haven't been told anything else, and that's just, like, the assumption that people made, right? But I don't know, it seems like really strange to me that C9 suddenly like hard pivot to use Blabber 2 games in a row. Yes, they brought Blabber to last year's Worlds, and yes, they let Blabber play in last year's Worlds, but they let him play in the play-in, right? They didn't put Blabber at the main stage. And I do think that there are a lot of strong points to Blabber, but I think it's honestly incorrect to say that C9's early game is better with Blabber.
I don't want to get too off topic with the C9 stuff. I don't know, Mark, if you have a C9 caller in the waiting, but we should talk about it later on in the show, maybe.
Yeah, I think we have a little bit about C9. Either way, my point is just like, you see weird things coming out of a ton of team, and it's always a question about what's going on, and I just don't like, kind of excusing. And to be fair, Fnatic isn't doing this. I haven't heard their players say this, that like, we wouldn't beat SKT if this. I'm just saying, like, I think fans shouldn't do that either.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for calling in, Harry. Anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
No, thank you for having me. And I'm a big EU fan and a veteran fan.
Yeah. Well, thank you for calling in.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. I love callers. By the way, somebody in the Twitch chat said, anyone annoyed that Riot is having TFT show matches to celebrate League of Legends when it's a League of Legends 10-year anniversary? No. No one is annoyed. TFT is the best game. It's the future of League of Legends. This Summoner's Rift shit is dead. And in 5 years, Kelsey's going to be interviewing me when I'm at Worlds playing TFT.
Why would I be interviewing you?
Lucas Nguyen is here. Lucas, where are you called from?
Well, good morning, first of all. I'm calling from Denmark, but I just want to clarify first that I'm not actually a Danish. I was born in Vietnam. It's pretty clear based on my last name.
I think somebody with your last name could have also been born in.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, they can be born.
I can tell you there are many Nguyen's who have been born in the U.S. They're not necessarily born in Europe.
It's very clear. For example, I see C9 players.
Lucas, what do you want to welcome to the show as another EU caller. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So, I just want to clarify first that, so I was born in Vietnam, so therefore I don't have that much of a Western bias because I've seen many negative thoughts on the Twitch chat,
Take me through your whole life story, Lucas. I need to know more. What was it like?
What was it like growing up? Get to the take.
Are your parents still together?
Yeah, they're still together.
Great.
Thank you for asking. All right, so my hot take is that Fnatic, Cloud9, and Splice will bounce back in the second half of the group stage, while Liquid will also make it out of the group over Damwon. And I believe so because historically, Fnatic and Cloud9 have managed to overcome a lot of tougher group and a tougher result in the first week of the group. While Splice, they're pretty much in a very easy group, so I would expect the same thing happens then.
So sorry, your take is Splice and Fnatic make it out, and TL makes it out.
And Cloud9 as well, yes.
And Cloud9 as well, and I assume you mean G2 as well.
There you go.
Well, G2, yes. But
so we've got all Western teams except for Clutch make it out next week.
Well, Clutch is in a very tough spot.
Yeah, you don't need to justify Clutch. I'm just trying to clarify the topic.
Yes, correct.
I think he does. Okay.
I just want to say, Lucas, every now and then, I see a comment on my YouTube video that's on my YouTube that says, "This was the last episode I could watch. These callers, I can't keep watching. Where does Mark find these people?" And I'm worried that this call from you is going to be one of those comments on YouTube. So why do you have all EU teams and all Western teams except for Clutch making it out?
So, well, I see it very clear that Splice is very much of an underdog team right now in the tournament. But the Group B, they are with the first seed and no disrespect for them, but they're pretty much in the group with the first seed from Taiwan and the first seed from Vietnam. So, there's a chance that they can get it out. Okay, yeah. While Cloud9, historically, they have been proving that they can manage to pass many other impossible groups.
Okay. And you have enough faith in TL?
Well, TL, they're very experienced, and Damwon is very much their first war. And I would expect them to choke in the second part of the group.
Okay, and then Fnatic is what? You think it's going to be Bwipo's going to get healthy and then he'll dominate?
Well, yeah, I hope. And there was in Wharton's team, they had the result of 0-4, and it was much. And it was much harder before. So, yeah, I kind of have faith in Fnatic as well.
Okay. This is a difficult call to toss to you guys because there's like a million different topics here. Let's start off with percentage chance that every Western team makes it out of groups and into quarters. Mark, you want to give me a percentage?
This is that call that we had with Kelby, from last year when he was like 0% chance C9 gets out of Group B, and then they did it. That's what this one is. I say 0% that all the teams get out,
except Clutch.
Right, I know we're Clutch. Yeah. I'm saying still 0.
Kelsey?
I would be more willing to say this conversation could happen if we were not including Fnatic, honestly. So I think Fnatic.
You're ready to let everybody through except for Fnatic. That's how tilted you are for watching their games.
There's a non-zero chance. Honestly, I think it would be non-zero because, let's think about this logically, right? Because we have Cloud9. The Cloud9 Griffin G2 group, right? I think that the game between Griffin and Cloud9 was close enough, and C9, honestly had kind of the better draft and the better game plan there. So there's a world where they can win out in the next matchup and then maybe force a tiebreaker. There's a lot of turmoil, a lot of confusing things. I actually think that C9 stylistically, when they play with Svenskeren, are kind of better at setting up the map and could execute map control better. And they're one of the better NA kind of side lane teams when they're able to execute that. Obviously Blabber does a lot of really strange things sometimes. I still think he's a mechanically talented jungler with a future, but just right now, Svenskeren is better for the team. So I see a world where that can happen, where C9 can force themselves out of the group, right? Especially if you have Damwon going over to G2. I don't know, maybe G2 decide one game that they want to play Soraka top or something. They're feeling themselves and they drop to C9 for some reason. There's a non-zero chance of that happening, right?
I think. So for me, the problem is even if these are each separately, non-zero, I think Splice has a decent chance. C9, I can totally see what you're pitching, but even if all of these chances are 50-50, we're seeing all of them happen, right, Travis? That was the question.
Yeah, they all happen.
You know how probability math happens, right?
Yeah, it's 6 if it's 50-50.
It doesn't go down to 0% chance.
Result, you multiply it, right? So that's not zero.
You still have to land heads 4 times in a row. It's a
but that's a non-zero.
Chance. Yeah, that is a non-zero chance. That is true.
They're 50-50. If you put these things lower, it starts dropping. If you put
but that's still non-zero, right? You're still multiplying non-zero numbers.
Okay, yeah.
If it's only a third, you're getting to 1%. You start getting lower to the point where I'm the limit is approaching 0. This is mathematically close enough for me to round to 0.
I don't think it's approaching 0. I don't think it's that low.
I mean,
honestly,
there's a non-zero chance I could get out of groups. All right, there's the
I'm pretty
possibilities
sure
are infinite here. All right.
I think we need to have a probability class here, guys.
I took a lot of logic and probability courses.
We need to figure this shit out.
I think we're getting off topic here. Okay, Mark means
it's not unrealistic that C9 could. Okay, Splice also not unrealistic, right?
Yep.
Just putting it together like this. Obviously, I still think that Splice is probably the easiest sell because that's a group where a bunch of shit could happen, right? When pitching this group, this was the very easy quote unquote upset group because almost anything can be considered an upset and almost anything isn't an upset. So by the same kind of logic. TL, I honestly think all games except for AHQ games have basically been won in draft. Or decided by some kind of whoever had the better draft, and because all of these teams are actually kind of close. IG, Damwon, TL, right? So by that logic, TL could easily get out of that group too. So
you can make an argument for all these players or all these teams, but to Mark's point, you need the stars to align to make this happen. Kelsey, do you think there's a reasonable chance of this happening, even if it's even if there's a non-zero?
Here's a better question, because let's stack rank the chances that each of you think Fnatic's the most likely, then C9, or whatever you're most likely to least likely.
I think most likely is Splice, just because of the nature of their group.
More
I
likely than TL?
Second most likely is TL.
Oh, wow.
Third most likely is C9, right? Wait, where am I going? Am I missing one?
Fnatic being in fourth then.
Oh yeah, because G2, we're assuming G2 just gets out. So if we're talking about Western teams in general, like G2 obviously, number one, most likely. But then after that, like we get to C9 and then finally Fnatic. It feels even Fnatic, it's like non-zero, but then you get to approaching zero when you factor in Fnatic. Just because I think, historically, Fnatic have completely turned around all of their shit before, right? That has actually happened. There is actually an instance where Fnatic is legitimately the only team in history to have done that, right? If you discount like that, everyone on the roster except for Broxa, Broxa and Reckless is different, right? But still feels really, really impossible. So
yeah, I pretty much agree with your ranks. I might flip-flop C9 and TL. The weird thing is with TL,
you think C9 is more likely than TL?
Well, so here's the thing: is like
I kind of think so
C9.
Too,
it's close to me. I'm still kind of flip-flopping in my head because TL is 3 teams competing for 2 spots, and all of them are pretty good, or at least like in the same ballpark of good. Whereas C9 versus IG, or excuse me, Griffin, is 2 teams fighting for 1 spot, but they're also kind of bad, and like I think more likely to randomly drop a game against like an AHQ or something. So in that sense,
I'll give you everything except for that. I feel like
not to mention here's an argument too.
HQ have actually, it's so sad because HQ have actually outdrafted most of these cases. Just fucking
it's
really sad.
Oh wait, I said HQ. I meant HKA. Sorry. I misspoke. I think it's more likely that C9 or G2 or Griffin could drop a game to HKA, which makes that like closer to even to me than like TL having to. I don't know. It's close. It's super close. Like I said, I was going back and forth in my head.
I just want to say...
I could see it just like from a strictly, maybe it's more 50-50 kind of angle. Sure. Because like that's, again, historically, it's always better. Like C9 has always kind of benefited from being in a group with a team that's just not going to drop games, right? But that's why I think G2 is a bit fickle because sometimes they just drop games on a win. So
last episode... we had a discussion about, I think that was the episode where Mark had the spreadsheet and we were going through like whether or not grouping. I've never heard a better argument for a change in format than Splice is more likely to make it out than TL. That just feels bad.
Well, they're more likely to make it out than Fnatic too, who they lost to directly in a best of 5.
Yeah, but Fnatic is doing weird shit.
Well, okay, that's fair, but so like FPX is kind of choking there too. I don't know how high. Some people are higher on JT than others. I don't know where Kelsey landed on the J scale, but I wasn't that sold on them, and the fact that they're 2-1 in that group.
I rated GAM over them, but again, like I said, this group is most likely upset potential group. So
exactly. I GAM over them as well. So to me, this was a group where anyone who ended up in there has a shot to get out.
Mark says 0% chance. Kelsey, I'm just going to ask you, do you think there's a reasonable chance that all Western teams make it out except for Clutch?
Like I said, if we're willing to drop Fnatic, then I'll give him the reasonable designation.
Okay, so, Jesus, you are super down on Fnatic this episode.
I just like, I see what they're, even when they were doing... let's talk about the 2017, right? Some of the drafts they did, they at least like kind of had logical sense behind them. A lot of this feels really weird. I don't know. They just not, it's like they've got the trifecta of playing like shit, not understanding their own team, and then not even making things that are like objectively good in draft. It's really bizarre to watch. So yeah.
It's the holy trinity of bad draft, bad play, and bad coordination. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, Lucas, it sounds like Fnatic might be dooming your hopes more than anybody. Do you have anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Well, I do agree with the fact that Fnatic has a very low take a chance of making it out. Thank you guys all for the call and all the informations. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right, moving on to the next caller. We'll do one more call and then we'll take our final break of the night. But I do want to give a couple more shout outs to some more subs. We got Jake Pref and Klotzy and Tim Donger for 14 months. Hot Take G2 will go 0-3 week 2. I don't think that's likely, but I like the suggestion. Tom Shu is rejoining the show. Tom Shu, remind everyone where you're calling from.
Hey guys, it's been a while. Calling from Hampton Roads, Virginia.
That's right. What do you want to talk about in the show?
So I want to talk about Group D, and can we talk about this enormous overhype that's been going on with IG and with Damwon, that's been going on since the beginning of play-ins, and now that it's finally getting exposed, and just talk about how many people are actually falling for this narrative. And so I want to bring you guys back to, I think about maybe like a month ago. So there was this post on Reddit where it had, the Nuggery climbing to the top of solo queue playing only Klepto. And I sort of think that's where a lot of the hype ended up starting off for Damwon. And even though they were like third and presented like serious problems, and it kind of exploded from there as they just continued to beat on like random teams in play-in stage. And it ended up, rating people higher than they should. So, and that ended up just going out of control. And I think the same thing could be said for Damwon, which like a common thing I kept hearing, a common narrative that I kept hearing for people rating IG over TL was that, IG at their peak is World Championships level, right? But the problem with that is, how long has it been since IG has been World Championship level? Ever since like the very end of MSI when they lost 3-1 to TL. And that makes no sense to me. And they haven't shown this level pretty much for the entirety of like the LPL season. And then we come up here and expect them to just turn it on magically, like a boot camp is just going to come and solve their problems. Well, it just doesn't work like that. And I see everybody here giving them the benefit of the doubt, even though, TL didn't get any benefit of the doubt. Everyone's like, IG played in their worst series of their careers. And TL was like, oh, no, TL is just bad. So where's my benefit of the doubt? And it just makes no sense to me. And I think now we're just finally starting to see that, come around, and I'm getting a lot of pleasure out of it. So
you think IG and Damwon are overhyped?
Yes.
See, this is
I think we've all seen that now.
This is one of those situations, again, where I am like, I don't feel like there was that much hype, like, around either of these teams.
Oh no, people were talking about Damwon IG being potential Worlds contenders up in that really? G2 Fun Plus.
Where?
Tier.
I feel like Damwon was the more overhyped team, what I was like from at least like the people around me.
And I don't even feel like Damwon was that hyped from other people around me. I feel like people were like, okay, it's a 50-50 on if TL makes it out or Damwon. And anytime anybody is claiming an NA team can 50-50 with one of these teams, it totally means that they're not overhyped.
This was pre-play-ins. Like, this is before they actually got slotted into Group D.
Kelsey, do you think that Damwon...
like, people were having problems, like, after they show their first game in groups where, they lose. But, yeah, afterwards.
Kelsey, do you think that Damwon and IG were hyped?
Mm-hmm. I think that there was. It depends on what you mean by.
Tom Shu, you're echoing a ton. Can you mute yourself?
Oh, is that me?
Yeah. Go ahead, Kelsey.
It depends on what you mean by hype. Right? So I think that one factor that's involved. Goodbye, Travis.
Hello. Yeah, I think you're Skype.
I think it's Travis.
Kelsey, did you unmute? Kelsey, did you?
Did I?
I'm still muted.
That's really weird. All right. It was weird because I feel like I muted Discord and unmuted Skype somehow. Anyway.
By the way, if anybody's curious about the audio issues, we decided to bring we hired the Riot sound crew from This Worlds, and that's to do the show. And we thought maybe it would be good if I burp in a little bit, and then you'll understand. Anyway, All right, Kelsey, restart. Go.
It wasn't that they weren't hyped, right? It's hard to like. I think that they were pretty hyped to an extent because I do think that people have rated Nuguri really highly, and I kind of feel like the shy when I see people comparing the two of them because it's like I'm thinking in my head, how is this guy constantly playing Klepto? I watch his laning and he's basically just like getting free autos when I feel like most like top players with any sense of self-respect would just snap off his hand, right? Like it's just really strange watching him get like these non-interactive trades in top lane and then other top laners in LCK just not responding, right? So like to that extent, I felt like a little bit Damwon overhyped, especially when they do these kind of all scaling lanes. I'm always impressed with Canyon when they do those types of drafts because I feel like this guy is not put on the same pedestal as Tarzan and Clid, but he's always able to do way more with absolute. So for me, it's like Canyon always gets the short end of this stick here. But yeah, I would say that Damwon it was hyped. I don't know if they were overhyped, but they were definitely hyped. I would say IG was hyped. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were at least hyped enough to put them over TL.
Yeah, of course. And I personally rated them both over TL, but I thought that the group was going to be close.
There we go. It's all coming around.
Well, I mean,
the group is so close.
We're not proven wrong yet because if they beat TL, because I had Damwon and IG getting out over TL, and that could still happen, and so that doesn't make me wrong yet if it happened. Now, I would say I overrated Damwon because I thought they would be better, which is totally fair, and I've basically said that ever since Plans, where I was like, oh, yeah, but I definitely overrated these guys, but I still think that they can easily get out, and so can IG, and then I think, you know, depending on who you asked who the tournament favorites were, you know, like legitimate, you know, substantial chance of winning the whole thing, I don't actually think I saw that many people like putting Damwon and IG in even the top 4. They might have started breaking in there, but I saw a lot of, you know, G2, SKT, maybe Fnatic, Fun Plus, those kinds of people.
I definitely did hear like a fair amount of people talking about it, especially on like the Dive Foria podcast right before Worlds. I think Jat was talking about it. Oh, IG wasn't looking good. Yeah, whatever, that other podcast that shall not be named. But Jat was talking about, oh, if IG can get back to their MSI form, then they'd surely be a contender for Worlds. And I think that's fair to, you know, make that argument that if they can, you know, step up their game and get back to that level of Rookie can step up and land, make say a jump forward, then they'd be at that level.
I mean, I'll give you that. I think I overrated IG, but I also acknowledge that that was probably going to be the result of me putting them up highly because I absolutely acknowledge IG are not going to the IG from 2018 World Championship simply because they have a very different jungle and a very different style. And the way that they were playing in the Gauntlet was almost like forced team play that I'd almost never seen IG have, like that kind of level of team play, but they were playing it because their jungler needed way more help than Ning does, right? Like Leian, I think most people can agree, has kind of been like outpathing himself this tournament, has been making a lot of really poor decisions because he's revealed, like this is basically what we would get if TSM had made it to Worlds with Spica, right? Very, very similar situations. So I think that that's like not a knock against Leian in particular, and IG have kind of gone out of the way to sort of accommodate them, and that has actually overall improved their team play, but it also shows that there's a big problem with their jungle support duo, and this tournament, I think jungle support duo is really important. So yeah, based on that criteria, I definitely overrated IG.
Tom,
yeah, I think.
All right, then I guess we can all agree that I'm correct and will be correct.
Okay, well, very good. Mark, did you want to wrap stuff up at all on this? Or did
no,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Tom, thanks so much for calling in. Anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Sure. One last thing. I'm sure you guys are news that Bjergsen is re-signing, but I just want to put this in your heads. Like now that what is 100T going to do now they don't have news? But Think about
We'll
it.
probably talk about that.
100 T.
We'll probably have
Stewie. Let's make it happen, boys.
Okay.
That was me this time. That wasn't Travis. Usually Travis
No, yeah, he just left. That was
I think you could have just let the chat assume that it was actually me somehow.
Yeah, Kelsey.
So we gave Kelsey the Mark C privilege. She booted him.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, the second break of the show, to talk about Movement. They make amazing stuff. Go check them out, mvmt.com/Travis. They've got some watches, amazing watches. They're an LA-based company, and they've got some fantastic accessories for men and women. I'm wearing one of their watches right now. Actually, you'll see this in every interview that I do, as long as I guess it's not hidden by my sleeve. But I wear this watch all the time. They've sent some other stuff as well. I actually need to start swapping it out for some other stuff, because they've sent me some really great watches. They've got blue. Oh, I wear their sunglasses all the time. Admittedly, I haven't had to wear them as much in Europe because there's no sun here. But they have blue light filter glasses, which you can check out. That's fantastic for using the computer. They're the Everscroll is the name of that. You can go check it out at their site. And again, mvmt.com/Travis. You go there, and guess what? You're going to get 15% off your order. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat right now. But I super appreciate Twitch chat right now yelling at me. It's October, you West Coast pansy. Yeah, well, you know what? It's sunny in LA right now, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Mark hasn't seen the sun, but it is out there.
It's out there.
He hasn't, the cat's seen the sun. The cat's looking out the window right now, enjoying the sun.
Get him some glasses.
Either way, we don't know if they have any. I need to check and see if they've got any sunglasses for the cat, because Mark's not going to be going out there anytime soon. But the cat can gaze longingly wearing them. Anyway, mvmt.com/Travis. Go check their stuff out. Save 15%. Really appreciate their support of the show and so much of the stuff that I do. Moving on, though, to the next caller. We got 2 more, I believe, before we are done. Puppy, by the way, gifted 5 subs. Thank you, Puppy. That's very nice of you doing that. Robot Russ with the 21 months and Lucky Stuff Twitch. Thank you, Puppy. Nihilist Gamer for 15 months and Diane, is it Delay No More? Delay No More? Yeah, Delay No More. Thank you for the sub. We're joined right now by Wrist Nubs. Wrist Nubs, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Nice.
What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
My topic was, I think that this world has been the worst I've ever seen from a broadcast standpoint because of the blatant EU bias from both EU and NA casters.
It's blame what? What's the bias?
Blatant
EU bias.
EU bias.
Got it.
All right. Well. Oh God, this is a dangerous topic to get into.
Travis.
Do you feel that the NA teams have been slighted by NA casters, Travis?
1 second.
I thought he was running away.
No, I was not running away. It's just the audio messed up, but it is funny that I did drop at that time.
Okay, let me go first then, because I had some pretty fuego tweets. Not fuego isn't like funny. I just like.
Yeah. By the way, I talked to the person who was in charge of that, Mark, and they told, or at least one of those things that you were complaining about on Twitter, and their response was, "NA needs to do something interesting at Worlds, and then they can be in a video."
Okay. That seems random. Is that true?
I don't know if they were just being salty or snarky or whatever, but I explicitly said, look at this tweet Mark made. Why are you failing this way? Mark, you want to explain your situation?
Yeah. So, I've seen this. The reason I pulled this call was because I've seen this sentiment in Reddit threads as well. And so I wanted to give Travis and Kelsey a chance to at least hear it out and then disagree. My tweets were mostly just trying to be funny and mostly make fun of Fnatic fans while also having a little bit of truth in them. I do think it was a little weird that they had the way they presented that like day one opener. Just especially compared to like, I really liked the one last year where you had the Caster June kind of presenting the entire landscape of the international league scene and its history, and then they kind of like showed a bunch of people who are going to be contesting that, and I thought like, wow, that was a really sick hype. I hope they do something similar where they kind of capture what's going on in recent history stuff as well as kind of historical things. And it just didn't really do that, and it felt like they just picked random star players to give a spotlight to, which I don't know. I just like, this is kind of random. Like, why would you not cover G2 coming in as like clear tournament favorites? They did that a little bit, but it was more like a piece of a call from like, I think it was Medic or maybe it was Freak, like, you know, and it was just.
Was it Medic's?
Was weird that,
they should have used Medic's call, and they are the best team in the world. That would have been the best.
That's fine. I just didn't feel like it's set up. It just didn't feel like it set up groups and the questions that people would be having. No, actually, which was my only perspective.
So actually, I forgot about that. So actually, one of the best openings or teasers or hype things for anything Riot's ever done, I think, was that Caster Jun
that thing
video.
Was fucking amazing.
In part because it was so prescient. I mean, for those of you that don't remember, Worlds Groups last year in Korea, and the opening video is Caster Jun, who's the Korean caster and host and hype man, who's so iconic, and he's sitting there talking about the pedigree of Korea and the teams and the dominance and how they've always been on top in that, and of course Worlds is in Korea at this point in time, and they're talking about, like, now there might be a challenger. Is this the year that Korea falls? And it turned out, yes, it was the year that Korea fell. And it was actually quite, like, it was very dramatic and very well done. And I think did a great job of actually telling a story about Worlds. Whereas the opening for this was just sort of like, hey, look, it's some famous people around. I didn't feel, it felt like the same. It was the same. I felt like that hype trailer could have been done for a LCS finals.
It was the same as all the other ones, where you take the best players on what you think are the best team, and you let them say a line or two. And I thought what they did with 2018 was moving in the right direction of being more narratively focused than that. And because, like, yeah, if the person cut it says like, well, North America needs to do something on the world stage first, that's a totally fair point to make. But at the same time, North America is also coming off their best international performances the same way Europe is. And so, I think it's the question with North America was like, was that shit a fluke? Because I mean, I think it's a fluke, or I thought it was, like, I didn't think TL should beat IG. And I think that that's something that would be on a lot of people's minds, as well as the fact that they're in the same group as IG, and like setting up the storylines the way that Caster June did in 2018, I thought was what they're going to do in 2019, because it feels like we're in a mini revolution. We're like, G2 is the best team in the world. That's crazy. It's like to have thought about, going into Worlds last year that this be the landscape that we're in, and it felt like we just didn't acknowledge it. It didn't really acknowledge it well.
Not to mention, you could do the same thing that you did with Worlds last year, where like that. They were able to take the fact that Worlds was in Korea to have this discussion about, can Korea stay on top? You could have done the same thing here with G2, where you're like...
Yeah, put Quick Shot in front of the camera and talk about how crazy it is.
All right, first off, you lost me there. But... anyway, it's sure. Somebody can be talking about having... No matter what, you can have a discussion about G2... claiming their right to be the best team. You know what it is? You start with a clip of Hotline League of me saying I don't think they are necessarily the best team in the world, and then
obviously,
and then that positions the whole set, the whole feature. Around, they have to prove this.
Okay, so I personally didn't think that this video was not doing what you guys were all talking about, because I thought it was like, all right, you are including the reigning world champions. You have G2 saying, we're awesome. And then like the immediate question mark of, okay, the last series that G2 played went to 5 games. And then you have Faker coming back. So, like, all of those were kind of acknowledged. You can argue the execution was bad, but, like, it felt very, very deliberately like this was definitely the storyline that they were setting up, that these were, like, the three teams that... And maybe this is why the last caller thought that people thought that IG was a contender, because IG was in the goddamn trailer with SKT and G2. So, like, maybe that's a thing, but I think in order to redirect us back to, like, is the broadcast super EU biased? I don't know. Because I don't really listen to the casting. But you guys can talk about it.
I definitely disagree with that part. I don't feel like they've been... I mean, I'm not paying... Like you kind of... It's early half the time. I'm, like, semi-delirious, but I don't feel like they've been biased, at least on, like, the analyst desk or the casting or anything like that.
I feel like the analyst desk is the worst.
Yeah, I admit that I haven't been waking up.
Defected, but that's about it.
I admit I've been sleeping through the countdowns, and I've only been watching the post games and, like, the pre games and stuff. So I don't maybe the 30-minute pre shows are different, but I didn't feel like the analyst desk.
I have never said this before, and I have never felt this before. And so I'm nervous to say this because I feel like I'm just going to get flamed and dismissed as, like, NA fanboy, which is ironic because I have said that I feel like NA's chances are very slim this year and all that stuff, right?
Same.
As all NA fanboys are. They're eventually Korea fanboys.
But I do feel there's been a weird thing that I've noticed multiple times where it feels as though the moment a North American game goes sideways, there's this kind of, like, weird relish or, like, conceit that comes out of some of the casters or the voices around the fact that it's happening, and it's just like, well, I mean, this is how it's going to be. You know, it's just this air of, like, expectation that is frustrating, that is, I think, unique to the North America games. I want to be clear here. Like, I don't generally think that the casters tend to be very biased, other than the entire LEC broadcast towards LEC. But I think in this situation, it definitely feels like, I don't know. I've kind of picked up on it. That's why, like, I just thought it was me, but then you called in, and it does kind of, I sense just a bit of it. Now, of course, like, Reddit will blow that stuff up in a way that I don't think is necessarily fair, but I do feel like there's a little bit of subconscious stuff going on the broadcast.
I'm just saying, how many times can they mention, like, when G2's not even in the game? Like, it's not even in their group, they just start talking about G2.
Yeah. It's like a Travis Doublelift interview. You know, it's just like Doublelift's nowhere near this interview, and he's coming up.
In fairness, G2 are an insanely unique team in the history of League of Legends. And I'm not just talking about being a European contender to win the whole thing. I'm talking about the fact that they're actually basically a super team with a guy who role swapped, and then, like, coming into this year, you ask me who are the best players in each role in EU, and basically I probably give you the G2 list. I mean, the perks, role swap, whatever. But I basically give you the G2 list, and then how many times does that actually work out? Like, even
right. Most of the time people do it is because they're like, well, they're the best team, they must be. Like, kind of like the Rune thing with third best top laner. Usually it's kind of just like, well, people are just uninformed. But I totally agree that, like, top to bottom, basically they're the best in slot across all of Europe.
So I talk about G2 a lot, and that they're just, like, really fascinating for that reason. Not just because they're the best team in the world, but because of that reason. Not just because they're European, but it's like they are the perfect storm of a team that you want to talk about. I think people should be talking about them a lot.
Well, and the same way you talk about SKT at the, like, when they're the favorites, or like when they're the best team in the tournament or coming off an MSI win or something, you compare all the other teams in the tournament to them. So, like, when an SKT game ends, you might say, what's the point of bringing up G2 or something in an SKT game? Because I remember I noticed this after in SKT, I think it was SKT RNG, they brought up G2, but, like, that makes sense because G2's the best team in the tournament, and you're discussing, you know, cross-group dynamics, and I think you would do that with any tournament favorite. So while, you know, caller, you're probably right that there's more G2 talk than there's ever been for a European team before, it's, I'd say, almost all warranted. It's the same way, like, I would want to talk about, like, compare people to whoever's the best team at that tournament. Like, you know, is SKT or G2 really the best? SKT's in a harder group, blah, blah, blah. Well, G2's crushing harder, you know? Like, I think those are fun conversations to have, more than, like, sitting and breaking down a game to, like, the nth degree when, you know, most people have tuned out and, like, the game's over and want to have, like, a more interesting conversation.
Hey, we've got one more caller, so we gotta go because Riot stuff is gonna be kicking off not too long. But Wristnubs, thanks for calling in. Anything you want to say before we move on to our last caller?
I wish Fruskern would find a story other than Fnatic went to 5 games against G2, because that one's getting old.
All right.
Thanks, Wristnubs. Have a good one.
Last.
That's a strong finish. All right. No, I would read more subs, but nobody else subs, so it's fine. How do you say your name? SJ Pri?
SJ Pri.
SJ Pri. I just feel like you should get some more vowels in there. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Freiburg, Germany.
From Germany? Okay. What is your accent?
It's Midwestern, I guess. I'm from Michigan.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was getting at. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So I want to discuss how Bjerg having ownership will not change the dynamic of the team, but it could set a really bad precedent for future teams that might consider part ownership.
Okay, why don't you expand on this?
All right, so a little bit of a disclaimer. I am a TSM fan and a Bjergsen fan. I actually met you on Sunday, Travis. I was wearing a Bjergsen hoodie. I don't know if you remember that, but my take is that Bjerg being given part ownership will not change the dynamic of TSM because Bjerg already had a really high hierarchical status in the team itself. Even with TSM's poor performance over the last 2 years, I don't think anyone was ever worried about Bjerg's position on the team. Along with that, his relationship with Reggie, I don't think part as a lot of people think it is, at least in terms of team dynamics. I also think that Bjerg has the maturity and intelligence to not abuse it. Obviously, I don't really have insight into the current team dynamics, but all the impressions given by TSM and Bjerg over the last few years he's been there, he seems like the ideal kind of guinea pig of this like new territory. And I think similar to High and C9, he would probably have the initiative to step down or to give others a chance if his performance was like ever lacking. But with that being said, this deal has kind of opened a whole new can of worms that could quickly get to some dangerous territory. Bjerg is probably the best guinea pig for this sort of a deal, but I could easily see less experienced orgs making poor decisions down the line when trying to hold on to star players. These players might not have the maturity to handle that sort of power. And I have a strong feeling that Riot will end up intervening with this sort of deal in the future, especially when this kind of goes negatively. This is, for obvious reasons, kind of unheard of in any other sport, and most sports have rules to prevent it. So I don't know.
I have some. Okay, so let me start off here. One, my understanding. So this was not allowed under the Riot rule set previously. My understanding is Riot has informed people that behind the scenes that this is now allowed as of this Bjergsen thing, and they put in place a lot of rules and restrictions around it. I don't know if they've put any of that publicly. If anybody has said that they've put it out publicly, let me know. But my understanding is they've now created a system where it is permitted underneath certain circumstances, and I think some of them are like the player needs to talk to Riot first and have legal counsel that informs them of how this works, that is opposing the organization's interests. And so there are a lot of protections in place to try to make sure that this doesn't happen frequently, and when it does, it happens underneath pretty good things. The other thing is there's just no there's this interesting narrative going on that, hey, now he's a part owner, he's going to have all this power. I think part owner is like, I doubt that he's getting a very big percentage of this company. I just don't think that like he has enough. You know, it's the same way that I was a part owner of Yahoo when I worked at Yahoo because they gave me shares. Like, I just don't think that he's going to be able to impact much in that role as an owner, and so I just don't think that it's a big deal where he's going to come in and be like, "What? Hey, you have to do what I say, Acadian or Sven or whoever, because I own this company." It's like, no, you've got a couple percentage points at most. That's about it. So I don't see that being a big deal, and I think that this will happen pretty infrequently. So I'm just not as worried about it.
I kind of understand the perspective, though, that it does make him feel more protected than I assumed he already felt protected to people, and maybe this is making it like it's on paper now, in a sense. But I can kind of understand that concern. Like, maybe he's not going to go with his like shares and be like, "Hello, as 0.1% owner of Team TSM, I think this, and this." But maybe it's more like, if you have an argument with Bjergsen, or Bjergsen starts playing badly, or like these kinds of things, maybe with the percentage, it changes the dynamic. But
really,
like I said,
you think it does? Like, I can't imagine a world where he's like there's just no, he can't. In no way is this more than before.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is he was basically untouchable before. Maybe I'm not in the room, so maybe it does make it a little weirder. But I imagine it was already, if that dynamic existed, it would have already existed.
By the way, somebody in Twitch chat said he owns 20% of the company. Probably no, they did not give him a fifth of the company.
Take a nap.
I think, yeah, for me, the counter argument would be that if you're underperforming and you're continuing to play for the team, then you're depreciating your own equity. But I think if anything, him not playing for the team would depreciate the equity of the team more, even if he's running it down, just because of his gigantic brand value. And that's just kind of the reality of the situation, is that a lot of it, this is just kind of a manifestation of the idea that brand value sometimes matters a lot more than performance. So I think that is something that I think this is more reflecting on than. And so I think that the conversation that should be had should be more about that, if we're concerned about performance, rather than the ownership stake factor, because I think that ends up mattering more, right? But that's generally the conversation that I'd rather have than the ownership stake, which I personally think is a big deal, but I haven't quite formulated an opinion on it yet. But I do think it's a manifestation of this like larger issue.
My biggest concern in all of this is I don't know why he signed so early. Like, I like Bjerg a lot, and I want his and I want him to be in the best possible position. And even if his plan was always to stay with TSM, why not wait until the off season to see what other options are out there, so that you can use that stuff to leverage the best possible thing with TSM? There's a lot of players who, like, if you, I'm trying to think of somebody like Licorice. Let's take Licorice. I like Licorice, but if his contract was coming up and he wanted to wait till the off season, like, he might not have enough leverage to say, Jack, don't talk to any other top laners, or like, Jack, if Jack thinks Licorice might leave, he might start talking to other people and seeing what options are. TSM would wait until the very last day of off season before making a move if there was a chance that they could get Bjergsen, you know what I mean? And so I think that's the weird thing for me, is like, I just feel like it is such a strange move to not wait until off season and let every team, including these new ones that are coming in, shove giant piles of gold in front of you and figure out what is the best option based off of that.
I understand, like, there's definitely advantage to waiting, but I feel like Reggie and Bjergsen both knew that he probably wasn't going to get anything better than equity in a company. Like, no matter how much money somebody's throwing at you, equity in a company in TSM is probably worth a lot more than that.
Well,
how do you evaluate TSM as a brand? Like, that's a larger question, right? Is that because I feel like TSM as a brand is like not as popular in the context of LCS as it used to be, right? So how do you evaluate it in terms of future returns?
I mean, equity in TSM could be worth $0 in 5 years or $1 bajillion in 5 years. Like, that's that's the thing. Also, what if other teams are willing to offer you equity? Is equity from TSM worth more than equity from Team Liquid? What if Team Liquid's willing to give you more equity? I'm not saying that Team Liquid's the option, right? I'm just throwing it out there as an example. Like that. This is the problem, is that you actually don't know until you look at everything that's in front of you, and you have no risk whatsoever. Like, TSM's not going to pull an offer from you if you're Bjergsen.
I also think, like, it could be something where, you see this in basketball. Sometimes they structure their contracts in weird ways. Like the initial payouts lower to have us like a smaller salary cap hit or something. Like maybe Bjergsen's actual like monetary cost isn't that high because of this deal giving him equity. And then when free agency hits, maybe in his like they can go after other people that he wants on the team more aggressively because they know they have this space cleared up. Whereas, like Bjergsen wants to be a big part of that decision-making process. Whereas if you wait for the best possible offer, unless you're doing like what happens in the NBA, where like the players know who they're playing with before free agency even fucking hits. They basically say, us three are going to play together. Let's find the best deals we can find. And then like they almost negotiate. Like they don't really do it quite like that, but it's kind of what happens. So like.
Twitch chat is tilting me right now because people, and this happens every other show, but somebody says the risk is that the offer is that it's only allowed before he becomes a free agent. It's a common negotiation tactic. It is for people that aren't Bjergsen and TSM. Like, again, yes, that would make sense for like a Licorice. No offense, Licorice. But like for Bjergsen, TSM is never going to pull an offer from you. Like, they might tell you they're going to, but like they're not going to. You're Bjergsen. They need you more than you need them. I just don't get it. And by the way, to be clear, I'm not saying I wish that Bjergsen would leave TSM. Like somebody else in the Twitch chat was saying, yeah, but he and Reggie are close and TSM is his home. Sure, he could be sitting here saying to himself, I will never leave TSM. This is my home. I love Parth. I love everybody. But that there is no risk in waiting and making sure that you have the best possible option in front of you from TSM, because what if somebody else offers you something that is worth more? You can take that to TSM and negotiate. That's my whole thing.
I mean, like I said, I think it's less about the sentimentality of being at TSM or anything. I think it's mostly a plan of Bjergsen to want to be integrated with the team, and he seems a pretty success-driven guy, all things considered. And so he's like, I'm going to be a part of TSM, and I'm going to go help get the best players we can get and stuff like that. And if he's not a part of the team, he's not help building. And I think he wants to build a team or help build it.
Esports is about family.
That's the thing. Like Twitch says, like he values the team more than money. Okay, that's fine. He can have both. He could stay on the team and also know that he's got the best possible option.
He doesn't want to manipulate Big Daddy Reggie, though.
League of Legends documentary going up on Netflix tomorrow, says the Notorious Mid. Does that just get released on their stream? Because I'm pretty sure I'm in that documentary. We should wrap up the show because stuff is going to start moving on the Riot stream. But hey, thanks so much for calling in. Do you have anything you want to say on the way out, SJ Pre?
I have a few quick shout-outs. Am I allowed to swear?
Just go through it quick.
Fuck Garen and Yumi. Get that off my screen, please.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Also, shout out the Yahoo Boys. Shout out Alienware. And Kelsey, when are you going to be announcing that Mo is joining 100 Thieves as the mid laner? Good old Yaspo. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Well, that is the show. Don't go anywhere because we're gonna stick around on stream, or I'm gonna stick around on stream and watch this. Watch some stuff together on the stream. But as for all this Riot stuff. But Kelsey, do you have anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Thanks for having me on, guys. And if you would like to see my content, I'm currently writing for Desherto. I'll probably have some YouTube videos of my own by the end of Worlds. And also, of course, 100 Thieves, Need Shot, all that good shit.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a screenshot that says they found on some Netflix somewhere. It says League of Legends Origins, the documentary, hits a streaming service on Wednesday, showing everything from game development to today. Interesting. Mark, your shout out?
Doing some tomorrow, recording it, and then they should come out in the following days, which I'm pretty excited for. So they're sort of VOD reviewy. So just follow my Twitter, BMarkZ, and I'm sure I'll be tweeting out whenever they go out.
Are they going on your channel?
No, it's someone else's.
Or you sold this content?
Sort of. Whatever you want to call it.
Are you getting paid?
Yes.
Oh, you sold this content.
Okay, whatever, dude. Other shout out. Not really a shout out. I went back and I think more about it, and I checked again. I disagree with the guy about the world's day one hype piece. I went back and checked. Every other year, they've included pretty much every major region. They've slighted LMS a couple times. LMS can complain. I'll back them on it.
How does it feel to be LMS?
I don't know.
How does it feel to be LMS too?
It feels weird because I could have sworn LMS hasn't gotten a team out of groups in 3 years, and we had, but maybe I'm just confused.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to say was I just
Why am I shit talking anyway? Keep going.
I don't know. It's just fun, right? It just comes out of your mouth. Yeah. And then I was also going to say if the point was like previous world champions and like mid laners and stuff with rookie Faker and Caps, I still just don't see how Fnatic fits in there at all. But anyways, moving on. That's it. Final thought.
So we're not really moving on. We're moving off.
No, I've just moved on. Now that it's fallen out of my mouth, and the thought is dribbling down, and it's gone now. It's off. It's out of me.
This has been my show with Mark. Thank you, Kelsey, for being here. Thank you, Kelsey, for being here. I've got tons of Worlds coverage going up and some other coverage going up this week. Be sure to check that all out on my YouTube channel. Subscribe and also sub on Twitch. Love you all. Hotline League. We're done.